Hi everyone, let's talk books. And I've been gone for quite a while. I don't know if you can still hear in my voice. I have a feeling it's not going to transfer on camera really well because I'm at the tail end of laryngitis. I got laryngitis in September combined with my heavy workload at the moment. It just has meant that it's been a tough reading month for me, but I still got some reading in, so let's just get started. Let's talk books. Alright, so the first book that I finished in September was Duel of Fire by Rivet, and I found this book because of BookTube. So I found this book through Murphy from Murphy I think her channel is just her name, Murphy Napier. So, yeah, it's a fantasy world in which the main character is 17 or 18, and she wants to be a duelist because she comes from a family of firebenders, like people that can control fire, but she doesn't have the ability to do that. So instead, she's been like trying to find herself, and she really falls in love with dueling. At the same time, there seems to be some court intrigue elements where the kingdom, or there's some backstage stuff happening with the royal family and etc. I don't want to give too much away. Anyways, I really enjoyed this book. I've already, it was free through, like, if you have Amazon Prime or Reading Prime, something like that, whatever it's called, that you could get the book from Amazon. So I can't wait to read the second one. There were other books I wanted to read before I could get to the next one, but I am definitely continuing this series. It's really great. I'm really enjoying it. The next book that I read in September is The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I read it as an ebook. I checked it out from my library, and it was, I checked it out for Women in Translation month, but wow, this was an interesting book. It was a powerful book. It was also a weird book. It takes place in Korea, and it's what happens when a Korean woman who has, like, there's nothing extraordinary or even interesting about her until she decides to become a vegetarian. And she essentially decides to become a vegetarian because she's having these dreams, and she's trying to get rid of the dreams. And then the book is it isn't told from her perspective. It's told from the perspective of the people around her. And what we get to see is the way the people around her react to her vegetarianism. And it's not good. It's a dark book. But it was very good. Very good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I never rated Duel of Fire. What would I have given it? I think 4 stars too. The next book that I read was an audiobook, and it was called The Gatehouse by DeMille, and it was my first DeMille book, and I gave it 2 stars because it was terrible. It was a sequel, so granted, I never read the first book that it is based on. It was the John Sutter series. So what was the first book called? Let me see, because I'm like, it's Gold Coast. The Gold Coast actually sounded like a really interesting book because a lot of what happens, the plot of Gold Coast, is recapped in the Gatehouse. Like, a lot of the focus in the Gatehouse is like what happened 10 years ago. And it's really annoying, like terribly annoying, because I'm like, okay, thanks for the recap. I appreciate it when it's the second book, and I haven't read the first one for there to be some recap. But like, there's got to be a limit to how much recap you can do. Like, your whole book can't be recap. Like, I really think that very little happens in this book until the very end. I was really annoyed, and then I was really annoyed at the like casual sexism and the casual racism in this book. It's a very like post 9/11 book, because it's set in, in a time right after the fall of the Twin Towers, and there's a random Persian character who really has no purpose in the story other than to be a Persian character that the main character, John Sutter, can then talk to the FBI about. Like, really, like, that was the whole purpose of this character. And it was just like, completely unnecessary and weird. At the same time, like the author is like trying to not be racist. Like he's actively trying to not be racist. Like he makes sure and tell us, oh, people would call him an Arab, but I know he's not an Arab. He's Persian. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I didn't like it, but there's enough like mob intrigue stuff in there that I did finish listening to it. I have a hard time DNFing audiobooks because like I'm already in the middle of the story. I can just keep playing it. Like it would take something to be really, really bad for me to DNF an audiobook. But that's, if that ever happens, I'll let you all know. The next book I read is one of my comfort food series that I am in the middle of, and that is the next In Death book, which, this must be like number 8 or number 9 or something that I'm in. Yeah, number 8. It's Conspiracy and Death. And I don't rate the In Death books anymore because I generally I've decided I like them. I'm going to continue reading the series. This one was really good. It's a futuristic kind of mystery cop series, and I really like the main character, Eve Dallas. She's a kick-ass woman with issues and a relationship that she's working on, and I really like it. The mystery in this one was interesting. I wanted to see what happened. I didn't get. Did I guess what was happening? With some of these books, it's sometimes hard to remember. Yeah. I didn't guess what was happening, so it kept me pretty interested, and it's always fun to delve into this world, this kind of futuristic world, so I enjoyed it a lot. And then lastly, the only physical book that I read in September was E.B. Zoboi's American Street. This was the book club pick for my in-person book club, and I really enjoyed it. I was surprised because it was not what I was expecting. Like, I expected this to be like a feel-good immigrant story, and it's not. It's not quite a feel-good book, but it was like, it has a lot of depth and a lot of really interesting characters, a lot of themes to explore. I was reading what some other people wrote in their reviews about this, and it does pack a lot, and that was one of the things people complained, that there were serious topics that are and themes in this book that aren't really delved into as much as people wanted to, and I totally see that. I think that's a legitimate concern, but it really worked for me. The story is the story of a Haitian immigrant who comes to this country with her mom. They fly in, they both have visas. Her mom has a visa, and the daughter was born in the U.S. They're moving here to live with her aunt and cousins, and the mom gets detained at the airport and gets sent to an immigration detention center. So the daughter is forced to kind of arrive in the U.S. by herself, and then it's her kind of learning to live in a new place. And I believe they're in Detroit, and navigating the relationships with her cousin, the relationship with her aunt, the relationship with other students at the American high school, and romantic relationships, and it's really interesting. It's a little bit dark though, just as a warning, but if you're okay with that, I think you'd really enjoy it. I think it's a pretty enjoyable book. Yeah, it is a debut novel, so I know some of the ladies at my book club talked about how they could tell that it was a debut novel, where like this author has a lot of potential, but there are some like roughness in the writing here. So I just wanted to let you know about that. But I really enjoyed it, and I already have her next novel, which is Pride, which is a Pride and Prejudice adaptation. So I enjoyed her enough that I actually had pre-ordered that book. So that is it. Those are all the books I read in September. So not a lot. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not a good month for me. But I'm hoping that October will be better now that I am at the end of my laryngitis. And even though laryngitis doesn't stop you from reading, the feeling, especially at the beginning, of your throat constantly hurting, does mean you don't want to read. And I'm very much a mood reader, so when I'm sick, I just oof, it doesn't end. It is not a good experience to be around me when I'm sick. But anyway, I am hoping to continue to get all of this laryngitis out of the way so that I can film and keep talking with you all about books here. So if you read any of the books that I mentioned here, let me know what you think, even if you disagreed with me. And let me know what you read in September. And maybe if you have some good recommendations, I can add them to my TBR, because one's always looking for more books to read. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!